Brings is a networking group founded 4 years ago to gather Brazilian professionals and students of marketing and communication related areas in Canada. Nowadays, we have over 500 members and followers interacting daily on our social media groups and pages. Today, we are going to talk about programmatic media buying, a subject that is getting hotter and hotter every day. And first of all, I need to tell you that we're not going to have time to answer everyone's questions because we have a lot of content to show. But if you have any questions, you have two options. One is to send us the question and your email address in our chat here during the session, or to send your question to brainsnetworking@gmail.com, and we are going to answer you at a later date. And now I'd like to present to you Mazen Tannir, that's a certified programmatic trader. And I can also say that he's basically an honorary Brazilian because he has helped our community so much with mentoring in the last year. So with no further ado, Mazen Tannir, everyone. Hi, Maz. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Yes, we've been talking about my Brazilian citizenship for a while now, so I think it's well overdue.
The next step is just to learn how to dance samba. Wait for it.
Oh God, no! I think that's where I'm gonna fail, unfortunately.
He knows Brigadeiro already.
Okay, so I'm not gonna waste anyone's time. I'm gonna get straight into the presentation. Can everyone see the main screen to begin with?
Yeah.
Excellent. So this presentation is titled "What the is programmatic?" Because a lot of the time people are talking about it in the industry, in the digital media landscape, and it's such an important part of digital marketing. And if you are going to be in this space and work in this space, you have to understand the fundamentals and the basics of programmatic. So that's what I'm going to be running you through today. A little bit about me. I refuse to put how many years I've been working in this industry, but it's a long time. I'm a media director with an agency called WS. Feel free to join follow us on social media. I am certified by the IAB in Canada. For those of you who don't know who the IAB is a body of digital professionals. And I think the easiest way to describe it is they're like the Ministry of Digital Advertising. And they lobby the government for things like compliancy laws and privacy and so on. I'm also the chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Taskforce, something that's very important in our world, making sure people are heard, making sure that the people in the industry and the content in the industry reflects the people who are working within the industry. I sit on various committees, including the AdClub Toronto, and I encourage you all to follow the AdClub of Toronto, no matter where you are in Canada. They have a lot of great events, and we have something called Digital Day, which is coming up, and I believe they've decided that all registration is going to be free because the sponsorships have paid for it. So make sure that you're following IAB Canada and AdClub of Toronto, because there's a lot of fantastic information that comes out. Before we get into programmatic, let's just break down what digital marketing is. So you've got various components. You've got the advertising part, and we're going to talk about that today. And that's basically putting paid advertising in front of customers no matter where they are online. You have platforms, so people who are competent with the SEO and CRO. I don't know if my friend Bruno's on the line, but this is optimizing your site and for the user experience. You've got direct or CRM, and that's using things like emails and texts to reach customers with more exclusive information. And of course, social media. So that's your Facebooks, your Twitters, all that fun stuff that we have no privacy with. So all of these different components, they are put into a funnel. So a good plan is something that encompasses all the different aspects of digital marketing. And we start with prospecting. That means going after new customers. And then we use different channels depending on the product, depending on the results, to move all the way down to making that customer a loyal ambassador of your product if possible, to be able to build lookalikes around that customer, to find other potential prospects. But today our focus is on advertising. So we're only going to talk about that. And I should tell you before we begin, almost every slide I'm going to show you has its own presentation. So I've really tried to break down what you need to know. A little bit about Canada. As you can see, in 2020, there was almost $6 billion spent on digital advertising. And when you go down the list and you're seeing how bad magazines are being hit, how much newspapers are reducing, digital really is at the forefront of advertising spend. Now, this doesn't include the production costs. This includes purely the digital spend in media. So then we start looking at, okay, where is this going? So if we look at the 7.95 of next year, it's a lot of money being spent on a digital front. And this is all digital. So this is social, programmatic, CRM, everything that's paid. And when we take away everything and we just look at purely the programmatic spend, we see it actually represents almost a third, if not more, of the overall digital ad spending in Canada. And it's much higher in other countries like the US, some parts beyond the US, and I know in Brazil it's a very, very high amount as well. So the programmatic landscape is evolving and changing. What is it? So in the old days, that's my picture there, if I wanted to buy an ad on a particular website, I would call up the salesperson. I say, hey, I want a banner ad for 1 month on your site. What's the price? And that was it. And whoever went on that site, no matter what they were going for, would see my ad. But it wasn't good enough. So in 2003, they started something called an ad network. So now I can go to 5 or 6 publications and say, I only want to buy sports content. And that ad network would help me. But everything evolves in digital. So now we had in 2007, thousands of networks all trying to get the attention of customers and selling ads to people on different verticals. So how do we organize it? And that's where they created something called an ad exchange. And the ad exchange basically says, I will take from this network and this network and this network, whatever the client wants to buy. And that's where programmatic comes in. So how do I talk to so many different exchanges? It's too much work for a media buyer. So they created something called a demand side platform, a DSP. And the DSP talks to the exchange, which talks to the networks, which buys my media. By now, I'm assuming a lot of you are very confused, and that's okay, because like everything in life, it's better when you work with it versus when you hear it in theory. So let's break it down. As a definition, programmatic is a software. If you remember anything today, remember that. Programmatic is a software. It's a technology, and it uses machine learning and algorithms and all those big words to put your ad in front of the right customer at the right time in the right place. And for those of you who have used real-time bidding for search or anything else in the past, we use a similar style to doing this. But that's the key takeaway. Programmatic is a software. Now, for those who don't know, there are two kinds of websites that we interact with daily. There's something called an open internet, and there's something called a walled garden. That's the actual name, walled garden. The open internet is where we can play with programmatic. And sites like CNN and Globe and Mail and all of these others where you see ads that are targeted towards you. You'll see ads that are relevant because you were visiting a page in the past. That's open internet. A walled garden is a place where they own and house and manage the data themselves. So if you look at Google, Facebook, Amazon, if you want to buy ads on those, you have to buy it from within their platform. And we cannot use programmatic to buy on those. So we go back a little bit, try to break it down. You start with the advertiser, that's on the left. Advertiser talks to a DSP, a demand side platform. They have all their technologies. They have something called a DMP, which is a data management platform. It's like if you think of a black box on an airplane, something that houses all the data. The DSP talks to the ad exchange. And on the other side, the ad exchange talks to the SSP, the supply side platform. So now we have demand and supply. And the supply side platform finds inventory with different publishers to put the ad in front of an audience. So as a buyer, your interaction is with a DSP. That's what you have to focus on, a demand side platform. What are the advantages? So they build campaigns. They help you find the right audiences. They have more access to the ad exchanges than you would if you went directly. It's a lot easier to run your campaign budgeting through a DSP to turn a campaign on or off. You can do frequency capping. That might change in the future. We'll talk about it later. But there's a lot of great tools within a DSP that can help you optimize and run a much better media campaign. So now with some logos. If I am the advertiser and I'm doing an ad for Honda, and if you're from Honda, I apologize. This is not a bad thing, and you don't have to pay me for the free ad. And Honda wants to advertise all the way to a customer that's looking to buy a car. In a matter of 200 milliseconds, from the minute I tell my DSP, this is the audience and this is the information I want, that technology of programmatic will talk to a DSP, and I've listed some names over here of potential DSPs that you can talk to. The DSP talks to the ad exchange talks to the SSP tells the publishers, hey, who has this inventory? An auto trader will say, I do, here you go. And suddenly, the customer sitting on the other end of their computer will see an ad pop up for Honda because it's relevant and it fits in the entire program that we've just done. Now, can I go to Auto Trader directly and say, hey, I want to book an ad? Yes, I absolutely can. But in a situation like this, I wouldn't only be running on Auto Trader. I would be running on maybe hundreds of different sites depending on where the audience is. Now, I showed you some logos. This is one of 10 slides, and don't worry, I'm not going to show you the 10 slides. Of all the different technology companies that exist in Canada, there are so many of them. From demand-side platforms to supply-side platforms to the publishers that we can work with, to the people who are involved in verifying that there's no fraud, that there's no over-duplication or bad bots, if you will. So there's a lot of different vendors that we can use. So always remember, we are buying data. We are buying behaviors, we're buying trends, we're buying geographies. We're no longer just buying one publisher. And that's what programmatic can do for us. But it's important to as well understand who your clientele is. So who are you going after? Because you can't just say, I want male living in Canada, getting this much of an income. So if I told my DSP that I'm looking for people who are in their high 40s, male, they love soccer, football, futsal, whatever you want to call it, cares about the climate, anti-racism, always goes to the movies when we don't have COVID. He loves action movies and fast cars. So if you put that into a system, you'll get Idris Elba. But at the same time, you'll get me. And that doesn't work. So again, we have to go back to our old principles of marketing when we're setting up personas. And we have to give more information into this system if we truly want it to work best for us. So from geographies to working habits to their higher interests, what sites can we potentially target them on? Where do they go? How they're using their mobile phones. A lot of information can actually be put into a DSP to reach your best audience. So now we talk about advertising. What can we do with programmatic? So yes, we can do desktop, mobile, we can do audio, we can do video. And I'll talk a little bit about mobile in a bit with geo-targeting. But for example, on audio, you can advertise on podcasts, on some of these music streaming channels. With video, it's evolving now to use smart TVs like Roku. So you can advertise on what they call connected television, CTV, and you can run that through a programmatic software. So we talked a lot about data and big data and all that fun stuff. So there's a lot of different components that we can look into. And I'm going to show you some examples because I think that makes the presentation a bit more fun and enjoyable. So let's look at a few different ideas. So device. I can tell my DSP, if you're going to advertise on a mobile phone, only put this creative. And if you're doing it on desktop, only use this creative. Because, you know, we look at what Adobe had done, or Marketing Cloud. They said, look, we know you're on your mobile phone, so you're not going to download a technical paper. So instead, here's a link to a podcast. So you're helping them with their user experience as well by not expecting someone to download 50 papers on a PDF on their mobile phone. And we have to be aware of these things. And when we're setting up our campaigns on our DSPs, we can identify that. The same way we identify A/B testing on Facebook, we can do the same thing with programmatic. We can get as far down as a messaging matrix. So we tell the system, and you can do a connection with the weather network, for example. If it's sunny, only put this ad to the male audiences. If it's raining, only put this ad to the female audiences. And the system does it for you because the weather network is telling the system, hey, it's raining in Saskatchewan, but it's snowing in somewhere else. So we've told the system, if it's snowing, don't advertise. If it's raining, put this for females, this for male. So we're no longer going in manually and doing this when we hear the weather has changed. We've set up the system to do it for us. Time of the day. Why should I be manually telling the system, put this in the morning or this at night? Instead, it's, listen, from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m., only run the good morning ad. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., only run this particular ad. And again, that system can do it for us. If we're doing a multi-city campaign, multi-country campaign, instead of us going into the back end of the system or building our creative in a way that says, oh, okay, we have to find a nice backdrop for Florida or a nice backdrop for Toronto, we can have the system actually build that for us automatically. It's automated. And it's a dynamic ad that just changes with the DSP. Location, and this is really one of my very favorite things. So there's two things we can do with geo-target. Well, there's a lot of things, but let's talk about two. One is proximity. So we can reach customers with their ads when they're close to our store or even to our competitor store. So they're on their mobile phone device. We're able to do geofencing from there. We pick up their user code, and now we have access to this particular person if they open an app or a particular website. We can also do audience targeting. So that means people who go to a place frequently. We can know that they are either working there or they're regular customers there. We can build that in advance. And then a great example of this is Burger King. And again, they are not paying me for this. But Burger King launched a campaign where they said, if you go next to a McDonald's and you open the Burger King app with your location settings on, we will automatically send you a coupon to get a Whopper for 1 cent. And it automatically opens your map on your phone and it gives you directions to the closest Burger King. And you get to Burger King and you show them your phone and you show them your coupon and you've got the offer. So geo-targeting can really be used in a lot of great places. Behavior targeting. So a lot of you have seen this. Prospecting that you see at the far left looked fantastic in our new shoes. Okay, the person's bought the shoes. Now what? Do I keep advertising shoes? It's wrong. Let's try to upsell them to something else. You'd look great with that bag, with the shoes that you just bought. Or if they left the site and they didn't purchase anything, programmatic softwares can tell you this and say, hey, we should put a retargeting ad in front of this particular person because, you know, they came, they spent, let's say 10, 15 seconds, and we can determine that in advance and say, okay, they're going to receive a 5% offer code. Native advertising. This is one of my personal favorites. And I will tell you, this is one of the things that drives the highest conversions. So you'll see it in news feeds, and programmatic software can put your content across thousands of different news sites, and the software automatically updates the typeface and the style that matches that site. And it's a picture, not branded, and you've got, you'll see it in the third one here, win the race against resistant weeds in Canada. And it's just an image and a relevant headline that appears in a news section, and that's native. And these are great, great ways of reaching audiences because you'll see the people who are clicking on them are very relevant. And of course, a lot of this has to do with your SEO and having the right site and the site optimized for this journey. But right now we're talking about the advertising component. Progressive advertising or progressions. So we can do sequencing. If I can tell the system, I have 4 videos for this campaign. If anyone watches video 1 for, let's say, 50% of it, and I can determine that in advance, the next time we target them, give them video 2 or give them video 3. And it doesn't have to be a video, it can be an ad. So if they've seen this ad, make sure they see this ad next. And as long as you're working with a programmatic software, you are able to do that. So we talk about data and everything that's coming in to a programmatic software. That's what you're ultimately buying. Some people have their own data because they have a data management platform on their site. And it's becoming more and more necessary to have a data management platform. But there's basically, it's only 2 right now. The second party is really bundled with the third. But first party data, which is gold, is people who are coming to your site, people interacting with your site, loyalty or e-com. You've got third party data, which is basically if you go to any website right now and you click on it and you read an article, there is a company somewhere in the world that's pulling your data and your information. Not your name, but they will say, sorry, Flavia, I'm going to use you as my example. They're going to say, this user, they don't know her name is Flavia, but they say, this is a person living in Toronto, interested in beauty products. So now they have that there. When I come to advertise to people who want to buy chocolates, I will tell my DSP, my target might actually be interested in beauty products, and they will give me access to Flavia's data. And all these data points, whether I was a publisher, a DSP, or a client, goes into this data management platform. And I can segment my audiences based on what I need them to do. Now, we have to be careful about a few things. So, data and the algorithms are building my targeting. But we also have to make sure that we're telling the system not only what to do, but what not to do. And that can be in the form of a suppression list or a blocked list. And this is very important. So the first thing people say, oh, I don't want my ads to be on an adult site. That's fine. That's the easy one. But you have to take your creative and your messaging and say, where would this be wrong to advertise? And just some examples. La Quinta is a hotel chain, and they had an ad running in AOL that says they ran out of in-flight snack boxes on the plane. So come to us. The ad basically continued to say, we have food really late at night. But they put the ad right next to a story about a plane that just crashed. So that's a negative story. And these are things that you can tell the system not to do. There's going to be mistakes. We all know that. But you have to think about these things early. Cruise vacations, 75% off with vacationstogo.com. What a great way to live. And what do they show it by? They show it next to a cruise that's sinking. Children as young as 8 used to pick coffee beans for Starbucks. This message is brought to you by Starbucks. So again, one has to be very careful. Don't just run your ads on any site. Talk to your DSP and your partner and make sure that you've got a blocked list. So we talk a lot about fraud. We talk about bad bots and brand safety. And I like to say, talk dirty to me, but really it's not fun. So brand safety is a big challenge with these things. And I just showed you some examples of why. There are technologies that help reduce the bad bots. They help improve viewability, how long the ad is shown for. Hackers are always going to exist, but you'll see here below, and check them out online as well. There are some that are ad blockers, but typically a lot of these companies have solutions. They cost a little bit more, so you have to incorporate that with your DSP and your technology. But they do exist. And a lot of companies now with the IAB have created something called ads.txt that you'll see in red. And it basically tells advertisers who is buying the inventory or which ad exchange is allowed to buy inventory on that site, just to reduce the amount of different DSPs and exchanges talking. So as an example, if you go to kijiji.ca right now and you put /ads.txt, you will see a list of the different ad exchanges that are available. If you do the same thing with Facebook, Facebook says, nah, we're a walled garden. You want to buy? You come directly to us. So always a nice way to see if something's an open internet and if they're compliant is just put /ads.txt and it gets you there. So we always have to have these conversations with the client. An example is I do a lot with agriculture in America. And our clients came to us and they said, listen, man, do not put my ad next to anything to do with Donald Trump. I hate him. I don't want my ads to appear anywhere. And we had to sit down with the client and say, but your audience is going to these news sites. So unless it affects the core values of your company, you need to be there. And these are conversations you need to have with clients when you're doing digital media And in particular, when you allow programmatic to just open up the web for you to advertise. So always, always, always have those conversations. I'm not going to bore you a lot with this, but there are different ways that we buy the programmatic through our software. There's auction-based, so for the media people out there, real-time bidding, we all love that. There's private marketplace, where I do a direct deal with, like the example I showed you with AutoTrader, for example. Then there's programmatic, guaranteed, or preferred. And these are things where it costs a little bit more money, but my coverage is more guaranteed. And this slide is a 3-hour presentation, but I just wanted to tell you that there's different ways of bidding. The most popular one is the one you see bottom left, which is open exchange. But that's going to give you a lot more problems with where your ads are appearing. So it's always best to talk to your DSP and try to get guaranteed or at least private marketplace, because it guarantees the quality of the impressions and better inventory. You don't want to be at the bottom of the page when you're advertising. You want top spaces. How do we measure? So I have permission from my client to show you this without their name. There's so many different measurement tools that you can get through a programmatic campaign. So not just impressions and the unique impressions and the click-through rates. You can check conversions if you have their pixel on your website. So they can tell you, yep, Flavia came to the site, Flavia clicked on the site. You can also measure it when you're using native advertising, and this is one of my favorite things, is to do a cost per action or a cost per acquisition. So it says, I won't charge you if, let's say, Fernanda clicks on the ad. Hi, Fernanda, I see you. We won't charge you when she clicks on the ad, but if she signs up, we will charge you then. So you're almost getting a free ad if the person doesn't click on it. But when they do, it's obviously a higher CPM because now we're talking quality leads. And you will see your campaign in real time. You will see your conversions in real time. If you're savvy with Google Analytics, you can use an API to link it back to Google Analytics, so it's constantly updating the performance of it. So you don't lose anything with measurement. In fact, you get more information than you would if you are buying directly with a local publication who's only going to tell you, hey, we put 50,000 impressions and we got 6 clicks. That really isn't enough, because what did those 6 clicks do? Did they sign up? Did they spend time on my site? And with programmatic, we can decide and decipher that in advance. So a question that comes up a lot when I do this, so they say, so Maz, are you saying that's it? Only programmatic, no more direct media? And the answer is no. So some publishers that are good publishers, and here in Canada we still have them, they aren't on the open internet. They are walled gardens, and they are important publications, and we have to advertise on them. Sometimes your budget isn't enough to run a programmatic campaign. If you're spending less than $5,000, you might be better off going directly to a publication and doing a direct deal. Relationships are also very important. If you're buying a newspaper ad or something else from this publisher, they might throw in free digital campaigns. So it's always good to talk to the person buying the media to understand what's useful, what's the right direction to go. But you will see more and more media buyers like myself using programmatic, because it does allow me to reach a wider audience at the click of a button, quite literally. Bye-bye cookies. So we all know these are challenging times for the advertising industry, exciting times as well. We all knew that cookies were going to be removed, and thank God for that. But there's a big challenge on what happens next, and I don't have the answer, and there is no one official answer. Google has something called the Google Sandbox. The IAB Canada and the Trade Desk, which is the largest programmatic company in the world, have created something called a Unified ID 2.0. And this is an open source, it's secure. It basically means if Fernanda wants to access free content from this site, she has to verify it with her email. Because remember, and please don't forget this, the internet is not free. It's never free. You want free content, you need to see ads. That's the way it's going to work. So the whole thing is to find a better solution for the open internet. The walled gardens, they're not going to struggle, but the open internet will. So, we have to protect consumer privacy. We have to look at what works best for the advertisers and obviously what works best for the publishers, because you want to protect journalistic freedom and encourage journalists to be putting out better content that you will advertise around. Now, a lot of what I've said earlier might sound a little bit creepy, that, oh my God, they know I like chocolates, don't tell anybody. But you actually have options. So you might have seen this little triangle, I've highlighted it in orange. Or if you go to myactivity.google.com, you can change what the internet knows about you. You can go incognito mode if you remember to do that. You can have ad blockers. But again, I'll say it, the internet is not free. So you're always going to be served with an ad. And I always tell my friends, don't you prefer to have an ad that is relevant to you rather than receiving ads that mean absolutely nothing? And you'll see that a lot on Facebook. You'll see that a lot on some walled gardens, where you're browsing and you're looking at content, and then suddenly they're targeting me with lingerie. And you've not met me in person, but I'm not a lingerie kind of guy. So you have to accept that's the quid pro quo of the internet. It's not free. Ads are going to be served for you to get free content. Finally, and I went through this quite fast, so we might actually have a little bit of time for questions, but we'll see. This is a great campaign. It won a lot of awards. It used programmatic. And it was a company in England called Amanda that wanted to find homes for their pets. So what they started doing is they built 30 different ads. And they told their DSP, listen, if someone is on a yoga page or they have an interest in yoga, serve them this ad. And you'll see the first one at the top left where the doggy is saying, I love downward doggy just like you. If someone was watching a video with cats in it, put this ad. If they went to a restaurant or they frequented a restaurant or they're buying jewelry or they're outdoor people or they're watching curling, watching movies, every single component of who could be a potential pet owner, they built an ad for them. And so different customers, probably sitting in exactly the same room, were receiving different messages based on where they were and what their experience was with their online browsing. And it won a lot of awards, but more importantly, the amount of people that were signing up to be considered to adopt a pet was incredible, right? So you're looking at KPIs and matching KPIs. So there's a lot of great strengths in programmatic. Like it or not, you need to understand it. Like it or not, it's happening, and it has been happening for many years. And the evolution of programmatic is getting to a place where almost all digital buying will be considered under programmatic software. So I hope that helped you all. I hope it moved a little bit of the needle as far as the information that you need to understand the basics of programmatic. Like I said, every single slide here has a whole presentation to it. So if there's something you want a lot more of, or maybe we'll organize it that we do a second version of this where we go a bit more into detail and how the back end of a DSP works, because that's really, really important. We can do that. But you're looking at the open internet. You're looking at proper personas that can define your audiences and where they are and what they're doing. Building creative to match those audiences. So your relevancy has to be very, very high, and your site has to be ready to receive that information. And you're doing it using a software. And all the DSPs, they've got great ones in Canada. Some are better at video, some are better at native, some are better at display. But honestly, once you've understood your audiences, that's the first step. And then you can decipher which DSP is going to work best for you.
Matt, I have a question for you. So, what would you say that actually differentiate a media buyer or like a digital marketing specialist from a programmatic buyer?
So, a lot of the digital media specialists are learning how to use programmatic softwares, because again, you don't want to buy with only one website. You want to be able to buy with multiple websites, and you have to stop looking at just the website or the media and say, I want audiences, I want the data, I want the relevant people that I'm going after. Because even if two people have similar preferences or similar lifestyles, they may not be going to the same websites. So you have to be able to capture them in as many different places as possible. So the evolution of a digital media person, and anyone in this room that is getting into digital media, you have to know the basics of programmatic, because it will come up in interviews, it will come up with different companies, and people need to understand what the impact of programmatic is and how well to use it. We get some great conversions and click-throughs on our platforms when we were advertising, when we use programmatic, because it's high relevancy, and that's what's important.
Okay, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. As I just want to thank you so much for spending your time with us, and I really hope that we can have you over again here in the future. So if anyone has any questions from us, please send us an email at brainsnetworking@gmail.com, and we're going to get back to you at a later date. Thank you so much, Maz.
My pleasure, everybody. Take care.
Thank you so much for your presence. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.